We are back live for another day. You see a familiar face if you've been following my journey. Ashton, great to see you. Welcome back to A Mental Health Break.
Thank you for having me, Vincent. I've been counting down the days to coming back on your show. You know, I love it.
Oh, you're too kind, everyone. We have some anxiety tips, new tips coming your way. We're celebrating a new book release, 101 Mindfulness Practices to Ease Anxiety. We will kick off there in just a sec. But first, let me welcome everybody to A Mental Health Break, whether you're with us live or you're going to catch the show when it's released. Thank you very much for supporting the show and help making us a top 5% global podcast. We're continuing to grow thanks to courageous guests like Ashton today. Today's show is brought to you by johnford.com. He has a new empathy app in the App Store and his card set online. Coming Alive podcastproduction.com and tampacw.com, led by our good friend Carlos Garcia. Ashton, you have so much to offer everyone. She's a wellness space leader out in Arizona. Holistic well-being, yoga, meditation, all those things and more. You've seen her on Writing with Authors, but now she has a new book specifically for people listening and viewing to this show. What led you to want to create another book, and congratulations?
Thank you so much for the congratulations and the support. And, you know, this book it came right out of me. It was like I birthed this book baby because I have dealt with anxiety my entire life. Most people have in some form, of course. But as someone who has lived with pretty bad anxiety for many, many years, I have, over the years, of course, developed tools and techniques and learned a lot of tools and techniques that help mitigate anxiety and also better help us understand what it is, how we can work with it. Because when we hear anxiety or stress, usually we're like, oh, no, that's bad. And ultimately, though, these things are here to tell us something. These things are here like trying to protect us. We just need to understand what is going on beneath that root. So this book was my journey of delivering my favorite 101 practices to help other people through their anxiety, whether you're experiencing anxiety over a specific issue going on currently in your life, or if you're more like me, like so many people out there that are living with anxiety.
I love how you're putting so much passion and effort into this. You could see her if you're streaming in today, her smile, doing it all. It's not easy to come out and share your story, and you're doing it again and again and again. You've got multiple books, and we'll touch on the other ones later. Can we get a peek at one of these tips and exercises in the book, one of these 101?
I would love nothing more than to share it. Yes, thank you for that, Vincent. I love people like you that are out there kind of leading the way and creating resources and tools. And so if I can impact one of your listeners with this practice, then my work here is done. So what I feel really compelled to share with all of you today is one of the most powerful practices that completely pivoted my relationship with anxiety. And my hope is that it can do the same for you.
Sure.
And this in the book is a guided meditation. So I'm going to give you like the little microdose version of this meditation. So get comfortable wherever you are. You can simply listen. That's all you need to do. If you have a journal on hand and you like to do some reflection, you might feel compelled to write about this after we go through this experience. But what this guided meditation is about is inviting our anxiety to sit with us. Ooh, because oftentimes what happens with anxiety is it feels really faceless and therefore very daunting. And then our reaction, note I say reaction, is to run. We don't want to see it. We don't want to face it. But when we instead turn around and we face it, my anxiety's over here, apparently, then it immediately disarms that initial fear. It kind of removes the daunt, if you will. And then it allows us to look at it through that lens as what are you here to tell me, as I mentioned in the beginning. So one of my best friends has a name that she gave to her fear. So anytime she feels fear, she named it Eric. And she's like, oh, hi, Eric. Welcome into the room with me. What are you here to tell me? How are you protecting me? And in so doing that, it's funny, right? We're laughing because I was like, Eric, of all names. But she disarmed it. So that's what we're going to do here today. So we're going to flip the script on our anxiety. So wherever you are, take a deep breath in with me, in through your nose. Take a deep breath out. And then either close your eyes or just kind of feel into yourself for a moment and notice if you're dealing with any current anxiety. And if you're not currently, amazing, but think back to a recent time when you were. Okay, so either way, we're kind of holding that anxiety in our presence. And the next step is to literally say hi to it, as if it's like Vincent and I sitting across from each other having a conversation. Be like, oh, hey, I see you. I acknowledge you. So do that. That first step is a very big step. So now we're no longer resisting or avoiding it. We're addressing it head on. So from here, with your eyes closed or just a nice unfocused gaze, visualize your anxiety sitting next to you. What does it look like? Is it a specific color? Does it have a texture? Maybe it has a name. Maybe the name comes to you right away, or maybe you have a name that you want to label it now. And then my next question is, does it have anything that it wants to tell you? So, what is your anxiety really here to tell you? Now, we want to become a neutral observer here, meaning we're not sitting here being like, oh my gosh, I didn't get the answer right away. I must be doing something wrong. This just adds to our anxiety.
You're right.
We also want to just remain calm and grounded and listen for any insights that come through. Sometimes it will be right away. I am sure we have some listeners who are like, oh, that's what this is about, right? And some anxiety is more overt. You have a stressful meeting coming up, you're appearing on a podcast, and you just want to do a great job, right? That anxiety is productive. We can channel that anxiety into, okay, you're going to give it the best you've got for this meeting. You're going to show up in presence. You're going to breathe through that anxiety. You're going to channel that into giving a great presentation, whatever it is. But sometimes it's more deeply rooted and the answer, the clarity is not going to come through right away. So then this is where it becomes an ongoing practice of when you're starting to feel that anxiety. For me, I feel it in my chest, kind of like butterflies and like tightness. So when you feel that coming on, you can take a pause and you can just tune in and say, okay, what does my anxiety look like? What does it have to say? And you can listen. Adding on to that, one more piece that I would love to share is if you are making this an ongoing practice, because spoiler alert, if you got the clarity right away, amazing, that does happen. Most of the time for most people, it takes a little bit, especially if this is completely foreign to you. And you're like, you want me to name my anxiety? You want me to what now? So if that's the case, then I would love to offer you this as well. This has been profound for me personally and for many of my students and clients. This is placing a hand over your heart and a hand over your stomach. Eyes opened or closed, whatever you feel comfortable with. And you say, I love you and I'm listening. And this is telling your body and your nervous system that you are safe. This is pulling you out of the anxious thoughts into your body, into the present moment. And once again, whether instantaneously, whether in 10 minutes or 10 days, you're going to get some insight into what your heart is trying to tell you, or into what your anxiety is there to say.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Everyone, stick around to the end of the show. We'll tell you exactly where to get that book. We'll tell you exactly how to get a signed copy too, if you want. But you've gotten a preview into how she's not only a distinguished author, but she's a yoga and meditation lead out on the West Coast. It's not the only thing you did for the mental health world. You did another book this year too. I'd love to shed some light on that. That one on personal growth.
Yes. The Learn, Grow, Shift, 30 Days of Personal Growth. Yes.
Talking about, yeah.
Oh, that's my very first book. That was actually self-published back in 2018. It's still a popular one. And that is a 30-day self-growth workbook. So every day you open it up, and it doesn't have to be every day for 30 days, however you want to space it out. And there's a guided practice. So there's a little bit of journaling. There's a little fun fact. You learn something. So every day that you open up this book, you're learning, you're growing, and you're shifting in some way. So it's a fun one, especially for those of you who love kind of an interactive format or a journal style book. And it's kind of like my cult classic because it was my first baby. So thank you for shouting that one out. I love that.
I get it. Yeah, it's always in my notes when we talk because of the success that you've had with the book world and now you're expanding into a new journey. But I'd love to talk about setting aside a time for rest and reset and things we enjoy, because right now she's over there in Colorado, away from Arizona for a month. Let's talk about the mental health benefits of clearing your head and maybe getting away when you need to?
I love this question. Thank you so much for bringing this to everyone. Rest is productive. So I'm going to say that again. Rest is productive. When we allow ourselves to take a break, to step away, we recharge our batteries. And for some of you listening, you're like, yeah, duh. And I'm glad that you're there. But for many of us listening, we're like, yeah, but I can't do that. And that was me for many, many years. It was like, yeah, I get it, but that's not in my reality. Well, when I did finally start taking time off, literally, as Vincent said, scheduling time to rest, to not work, to do all those things, I realized my productivity soared. My inspiration was at an all-time high, and I felt like my well continued to deepen in terms of what I could take on and do. And so now I have made it a point and a non-negotiable to live a very mindful existence when I can. I'm human. I fall out of that, of course. But whenever I can, to be very present with myself and say, if I need an extra hour of sleep, I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to beat myself up about it. And so, there comes that balance. This still requires of us discipline and consistency and commitment.
Yeah.
But self-care, in the sense of taking time to rest and taking breaks to play, that is revolutionary. And especially these days when the world is in such upheaval and everything is shocking and terrifying and draining, the best thing we can do for ourselves is to still take time to enjoy and not feel guilty about it. Take time to enjoy, fill our cups, because once we can pour into ourselves is the only time that we're able to then pour into others and into the causes and the projects and the work that we care about. So thank you.
That. Yeah, the evolution of the mindset as an entrepreneur, where in the beginning it was working these 16, 17-hour days, this, that, and the other thing. And then now, my first book was 2019. Now, really in those years, there's been breaks with, a vacation to see my family here and there. But really for those 5 years, I didn't enjoy or do much outside of my work, which I love doing because I built something that I'm really proud of that's still growing today. But now this year, I'm being much more intentional with something every month. I'm making sure it doesn't have to be, I'm going to Europe every month. I'm not saying that, but just something where I have to, okay, I'm going to enjoy myself intentionally this month. I, like you, schedule in breaks and rest during the day as well. Huge time blocker because that lowers my stress immensely.
And thank you for sharing that. And about your journey, it's so interesting. So if you're looking back on your 5 years when you were in full on hustle mode, building your empire, doing all the things, I was right there with you. We were kind of doing the same thing, parallel paths.
Yeah.
Looking back on that, we recognize as entrepreneurs that there is a time where you are in full go mode because you're building. And you have to be. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, I can delegate, I can take a little time off, I can back off a bit. During those times when you were in full go mode, was there anything that, looking back on, you would have done differently to give yourself a little more rest?
Yeah, I mean, no regrets, of course, but I, like many, always think we're one sale away or one conversation away from that big break, right? So I'm working this restaurant job, barely making ends meet, being content with floating and just making ends meet, when in reality, I don't know, but I was all in, and that's something I can't take back, because if I wasn't so dedicated and all in, I definitely now wouldn't have a team of 16 people, where 2 years ago we were at just me and my assistant, just about 2 years almost now, about a month away. So now over the last year, we're not all full-time people, but I've learned to trust and delegate and not have anxiety built up because I'm letting go of tasks and things, where now we have a team that I'm proud of, a little family atmosphere, and I look forward to seeing all that grow. But just seeing the shift in mind, we're struggling to make rent every month, working at a restaurant with an MBA, humbling myself down to do all these things. And now the stress has changed because, okay, now people are relying on me. Different type of anxiety, but I think the anxiety is diminished because of confidence now, where I believe in myself. I believe in the people I set around me, where I'm not forcing things anymore. Where in the beginning you're forcing maybe clients or things, where now I had the unfortunate and unique opportunity to let go of my first client and not renew their contract, where that money a year and a half ago, I would have been, no matter what, we'll take it. It's a good client, whatever. But now I had it to do where I didn't make my team work on Thanksgiving. And there was a problem they had with me and my team not answering on a holiday, being cursed at by an assistant of someone.
Oh,
I said, we wrote out the contract and I sent a certificate of completion at the end. I wish everyone well in every path of life. I don't have any hard feelings, but the point was my team can't be spoken to like that. And I have to realize now people look at me differently in the company if they're working for me, right? They're my teammates. I don't say employees. I can't let someone tarnish their mental health, cause extra stress. You're a business owner. How do you feel about that?
I mean, you're the host of a mental health break, for goodness sakes. You can't
Yeah.
tolerate that. That's boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because it brings us the perfect example of if Vincent in that moment was feeling anxiety and he was doing that practice we just did, and he realized that the anxiety, the new anxiety now comes from he is leading this group of 16 team members. Amazing. Congrats, by the way. That's such a huge accomplishment. Then in that practice, he would realize, okay, the anxiety is coming from, am I showing up as the leader that I want to be? Am I doing enough? And then he could break that down and say, what can I do right now that will alleviate my anxiety and make me feel like I'm, taking care of them? And then what can I do going forward so that I can set myself up for success? And then I can also let go of this anxiety because I trust that it's being taken care of. So I'm so glad you shared that, because that gave us the perfect working example.
I did it on purpose. But again, it all comes down to like the whiteboard, even today, like what's each thing. And I have it on my desktop computer. Everything's here where my stress is lower if I know exactly where I'm going. Of course, in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of flexibility, but I also need some kind of structure. Now we're recording in podcast blocks. Danica is scheduling people rather than giving my calendar willy-nilly, people scheduling, where if I'm in the zone doing something and now I stop for a pod interview, I may not be giving my best effort, my best mindset, my enthusiasm for it. So if I have these blocks, the brain switches over. All right, it's podcast time. Let's get into it. And I'm excited because now we're going to get her on Writing with Authors again. I had to preview the book, but that's more for the other show today. She knows this question because she's been on the show. Time for some advice. Someone's going through a real rough time, rough day, rough month, maybe. What can you offer them to help them keep going forward?
The first step is to pause and acknowledge where you're at. Right. Just like I mentioned earlier, where we often react by running from anxiety. Sometimes when we're going through a hard time, it can be a revolutionary first step to simply say, okay, I'm in it right now. I'm going through a rough time. I'm going to admit it. I'm going to own it. I'm going to share that with my loved ones, right? Like even that alone can take some of the pressure off. From there, the next step is to do something that fills your cup. So whether it's a 5-minute just laying on your bed, taking some deep breaths, cuddling with your dog, that would be what I do. Getting out in nature, something small, attainable right now that you can go do. The next step, seek support. So you don't have to go out to every single person, let them know you're going through a rough time. But if you have 1 or 2 people that you really trust and that you can go to and just let them know, hey, I would love some extra support. Or even, hey, I'm not even looking for anything in particular. I just want you to know I'm kind of going through a rough spot. I have a code with one of my besties where if I'm having a rough time, I tend to withdraw and go inward. And so if they reach out, instead of not saying anything, I just send them this little black hole emoji. There is a black hole emoji. And it's just letting them know, like, love you. I'm here. I'm just a little inward right now. So connection is key. And then I know this one might sound a little cheesy, but doing something good for someone or something else. So being involved in a cause that's bigger than yourself, or, going and volunteering to walk a dog at an animal shelter, anything that fills your heart and that kind of pulls you out of that current situation is a very beautiful way to give back while giving to yourself. So that's kind of like the down and dirty formula of, if you're going through it, you hear this is something that you can do right now.
Absolutely love that. And it may be for some a family member, some a friend, some a guidance counselor, you name it. There's someone out there who's willing to sit with you and hear you talk and get everything off your chest. It doesn't do any good keeping it all in. And that's one of the benefits of being a podcast host, where I have these therapy sessions every time I host a mental health break. Ashton brought her A game today. Is there anything else that you have going on in your life that you want to shed some light on? I know for everyone who may be having some mental health challenges in her area, she leads these awesome retreats, these awesome exercises. Let's dive into that a little bit before we get your contact info.
Yes, thank you so much. I do host several women's healing retreats per year in the beautiful mountains of Colorado. And the reason that they're in Colorado specifically, not just because I'm a native and I love this beautiful country, but also because this is where we are legally allowed to do plant medicine. And so our women's healing retreats offer an optional plant medicine component. And this is medicinal mushrooms, and they have scientifically been proven to help so much with stress and anxiety, and also rewiring our brains, broadening our perspective. And so there's so much good that can come of this. I'm such a big believer in this. And even if you opt out of the plant medicine portion, it's daily yoga and meditation set in the beautiful mountain nature. And it's a beautiful time for connection in a safe space. So thank you for letting me share about that. If any of you are feeling compelled, my next upcoming retreat is the end of April 2025. So you can check that out on my website.
We got to plug it now. Where's the website? Where's the book? Where's the social?
Yes, please jump onto my website. It's ashtonaugust.com. And there you will see my book, my retreats, my socials. My name is I Am Ashton August on social media. And you can find all of my books on Amazon. Vincent, if I can end with a fun fact that I recently learned that you probably already knew.
I may not. Let's hear it.
Okay, you tell me. I found out that pre-orders are the most important part of a book launch's success, because the amount of pre-orders are what dictates books getting on bestseller lists. So even though this is my book number 3, I just found that out this one. So I've been really pushing the pre-orders. So I'm not pushing it from a place of self-promotion. It's more so from a place of, I am so passionate about these practices and I am so confident in their power that I want them to reach as many people as possible. So if you're listening and you feel compelled to pre-order, or at least check it out and share with your network, I would be of the utmost gratitude. And Vincent, did you know that fact?
So, because I've done ghostwriting and book coaching, there's some tips that you can do where you set it at like a 99-cent price points for the ebook in the beginning, because that's going to entice anyone who's just even on the edge. They'll buy it for $1, and then that gets their verified reviews for people who actually buy it. So make sure you're on it for the reviews. In the comments section of the live stream this is going to be on LinkedIn, whatever, Facebook, a mental health break page on YouTube. One of those, put the link to your book for the pre-order. I'll go ahead and buy it right now. Everyone, go ahead and check out the book, check out the retreat. She's doing a lot for her communities in Arizona, Colorado. I'm on the East Coast, but we may be spending some time in Arizona, so I'm looking forward to that. Everyone, This is a mental health break. Please subscribe for future episodes. Leave a rating and a review for our guest today. My name is Vincent A. Lancy, and I can be found at vincentalancy.com and social media at my name. Today's partners are johnford.com, new app on the Apple Store, all those stores for your empathy card set supplement. Really exciting stuff there. Tampa Counseling and Wellness at tampacw.com, and Coming Alive Podcast Production.com. And with that, we are signing off today across the country. Ashton, great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Vincent.